Hello, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulties on the initial video. For those of you who are watching this on Facebook, you're going to have to watch it in a two-part. Watch the first part and then catch up on the second part. For those of you on all other platforms in which this video will be posted, you will be able to see it in one video cycle because I will edit it and put it together. But ultimately, if you're on Facebook, you're going to have to watch the first video to get the total context of what we're talking about here, because I'm not going to go back and redo that 9 minutes. Okay, we're talking about, as a point of reference, Maleah Davis, who was the 5-year-old little girl who came up missing, and the story of the stepfather isn't adding up, and there's a history of CPS having to be involved because of a head injury the little girl received back in August of last year. And it points to a bigger picture because cases like this land on my desk a lot because of my involvement in the Black community and in so many ways advocating for youth. I receive all kind of cases and complaints that come across my desk, and I do the best I can to be impactful in helping resolve the issues. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes it's frustrating, but the one thing that I'm seeing is a lot of issues in which our women are connecting with men who aren't behaving like men, and the consequences are dire. And I want to get back to that point. Back in, there's this idea that floats around that there has always been a lack of a Black nuclear family, or the nucleus of the Black family has never been whole, and that's not true. As recently as the 1960s, 75% of Black children were born in two-parent households. And now we're in the total reverse, where 75 or more percent of our children are born into single-parent households. And that dynamic comes with consequences. And we're not going to get in today into how that took place. That's not what this is about. This is about responsibility. And while the dynamic at play is so complex, as I mentioned earlier, it's so complex that we can't cover it here. What we need to do is at least make ourselves aware of the ultimate problem here. And I'm going to start out with make a point for those who won't stick around for the entire video. Young ladies, just because a person is a man and provides doesn't make him the head of a household. It is not the man that is the head of the household, it is the husband. There is a responsibility associated with being a husband that is not inherently handed to a man. And when you invite a man into your home and he is not committed or capable of carrying out the responsibilities of being a husband, you put yourself and your children at risk. And for those of you who want to jump on and start pointing the fingers, I got enough blame to go around to everybody. So if I haven't pointed the finger in the direction you want it pointed, stick around. But what I'm talking about now is there has been a concerted effort by the powers that be to ensure that the Black male is emasculated, that the Black male is alienated, and out of that, you have a bunch of Black males being reared by women and not having manhood and masculinity modeled for them. There are hurts and gaps that come with that, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because the true design is a design in which feminine energy and masculine energy come together to create a synergy, which is a more powerful force than the two on an individual level to accomplish things. And one of those things is to properly socialize, prepare, and empower their progeny. And when you separate and you keep a situation in which there's only feminine energy in the house, now both male and female have the ability to possess both feminine and masculine energy, but the way that they're expressed and the dominance of which are different and distinctive, and that is important because they both have roles in the house. Now, again, let me make myself clear. Just because you're a man, or just because he's a man, doesn't make him capable of being the head. See, the head doesn't mean that I'm the boss. The head doesn't mean that I'm the dominator. The head simply means that I have been equipped to be a protector, a provider, a covering, and a leader. When I'm properly equipped, there are things that I teach, even my wife. I'm prepared to take on the brunt of what comes at my family. I am the insulator for aggression towards my family. My wife, my children, and anybody else that I'm claiming to be a leader and a head in, I have a responsibility to stand guard over. The problem is that has to be modeled. It's something that is required for me to see. That's why I tell women all the time, and some of them get in their feelings. I say, you are a beautiful woman. You have done unbelievable things. You have stretched yourself far beyond your capacity to raise your children, but you can't teach a boy how to be a man. I don't care how much you know. You can tell him how you want to be treated as a woman. You can tell him how to, you can tell him how to treat him. But the truth of the matter is, he can't even learn how to pee standing up from you. He watches his daddy do it. And because there's a natural yearning to do what the older man does, he learns it, he practices, he tries, pees everywhere. But eventually he gets it. My manhood, masculinity, and the protecting of our race, our people, our women, and our children comes from seeing it carried out, not what's told. That's why people always say children do what they see. So it has to be modeled, and that's one of the things that we push heavily in the Black Men Lead Rite of Passage program is modeling it, letting you see how we handle our wives, letting you see how we handle our children, letting you see how we handle difficult situations where it's easy to become emotional, but it requires reason and ration. That's a part of manhood. I don't get to act in my feelings. I tell people all the time, there are some times that I ain't feeling it. There are some times I'm tired. There are some times that me and my wife may not be on the same page, but I don't get to behave based on how I feel. I have to act based on what my responsibilities are. And the responsibility of a head is to cover and protect. First and foremost, we grew up in a society in which the message is that the first and foremost thing is that a man have money. And a great deal of the frustrations come out of that expectation. Yes, a man needs to have the ability to provide, but what you have to do is understand first and foremost under the context of that which he is being asked to provide. In a context in which Black women have been empowered and put in positions where they are more educated and earn more than the average Black man, what are you asking him to do? Based on the reality. Now, I'm not talking about lazy men that don't want to work. I'm not talking about lazy men that just want an easy way out. All they want to do is try to take the crime route. I'm talking about men that get out there and bust their butt every day, but didn't get the same opportunities, or even when they tried, they were cut off every time. You've got to understand the academic holocaust. You got to understand how Black men are alienated in the academic process as early as 5 years old. You got to have an understanding of all of that to understand that this was purposely done. Because what happens is, if all I see in the Black man is somebody who can pay the bills, if I can do that on my own, he has no value or relevance in my life, and I'm gonna treat him as such. I only need you to pay the bills, and if you can't pay the bills, I don't need you. You've lost some of the value in what he brings to the table. Am I excusing him from being a provider? No, I am not. I'm saying that we've got to get together as a whole and come up with a way that we create our own, because they're never going to give the Black man the ability to totally take care of his family. They wrestled that away, because at one point we were. That's why you got to know. But here's what I'm getting at. There's a natural point of loneliness, especially for women. Because women are going to be more prone to seek monogamy. They're going to be more prone to seek a specific and caring relationship. The problem is when you become lonely to the point of desperation, your tolerance and your standards are low. Your tolerance is raised, your standards are lowered, and you accept things that don't mean you any good. And the thing is, there are certain things you should be looking for in a man that tells you he is not capable of holding the crown of head of household. if he's overly emotional, if he takes everything and wears it on his sleeve, if he responds from the seat of his emotions, if he can only perform his duties when he's happy, he can't lead, because you don't get to turn it off. If he responds violently when things don't go his way, he can't lead, because he needs to be a gentle giant full of power that is able to protect but never cause harm. That's something black men, that because there are 1.5 million men missing in the black community, because there's a birth rate in which blacks are born into single parent households far more than two-parent households, that absence is creating a void and a speculation of young boys of what it means to be a man, and they're trying to figure it out on their own. One of the things you've got to be able to understand is that we are failing to properly racially socialize our black boys. What does that mean? That we need to start at the age of 3 and 4 years old telling them who they are, and stop allowing white mainstream media to tell them who they are. Stop allowing music to tell them who they are. Stop allowing television to tell them who they are, and start teaching them who they are, where they come from, what they're capable of, how much their community needs them. And then we place demands on them and tell them that as you grow into your manhood, you're going to be required to be a protector. We need to socialize them in a way that we tell them at a certain age, you're going to start to see your voice change. It's going to crack initially, but then it's going to get to the point where it becomes deeper. You're going to start to see a significant change in difference between your muscular development and your physical strength in comparison to the females your same age. Understand that that new strength and that sense of natural aggression that comes with that new strength is not meant for you to terrorize that female. It's meant for you to protect her. You've got to be able to teach this, and it's got to be able to be seen. It's got to be something that he is literally striving for and aspiring to be. But black women, you got to understand something. There are a bunch of broken black men because of the absence of male modeling, because of a system that's aimed at them to emasculate, destroy, and misrepresent who they are. And while there is a natural inherent need to have someone next to you, you got to understand your responsibility. You got to care about who you choose to procreate. There's a man that took his baby because he couldn't get her in a custody battle, chained her in the car, put her in the car, chained the back doors shut, and set him in the car on fire and killed her, burned himself. He's critically ill, probably won't make it. In his feelings. We need men who, when they are in their feelings, still perform. Even when they're in their feelings, still protect. Even when they're in their feelings, still provide. But that has to be properly socialized and taught at an early age. Every other race you see got rite of passages for their boys. Jews got bar mitzvahs. And what are they teaching them, those kids? The bar mitzvah is simply the celebration that I've arrived to what I've been striving for. And all along, I've been taught how I'm going to deal with our women, how I'm going to deal with one another, how am I going to behave in a social environment, how am I going to carry myself, how am I going to represent what's going on. All of that is taught. And now I know who I am. I know what my community expects from me. I know how I'm going to carry myself. We've got to do a better job. These babies are paying the prices for our failures. We have a responsibility as men and as women to be whole. And there are a lot of us, ladies, who are out there trying to create relationships, but you haven't healed from your own hurt. Adverse childhood experiences, trauma, molestation, incest, rape, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, chemically dependent parents, parents divorcing. All of those are adverse childhood experiences that lead to disruption in life throughout life if you are not prepared to deal with it and cope with it, if you haven't addressed it and you haven't healed. The problem is when you merge, and check this out, you attract who you are. If you're broken and you haven't healed, you're going to bring some broken dude who has his own issues and needs you to feel validated into your life. And the moment that you are not well enough and strong enough to validate him, he becomes an enemy. You got to understand how this works. I'm not here to tear anybody down. We all need to heal. That's what my book, Born in Captivity, is about. Psychopathology as a legacy of slavery. Some of us have passed on the legacy of slavery through generation after generation. Multi-generational transmission of trauma. It's true, it's real, it's proven, it's scientific. It's out there. You cannot sit up and go through what we went through for 246 years of chattel slavery, 12 years of Reconstruction, 7 years of old Jim Crow, another 50 years of new Jim Crow, and expect there not to be mental, emotional, and spiritual consequences. And we are literally passing this on through social dynamic and genetically, through epigenetics. This is scientifically proven. We need to heal. We need to be okay with ourselves. We need to understand that it's okay to get help. But what we cannot do, absolutely and unequivocally, is put our children in harm while trying to cover up our inadequacies. Our babies deserve more. Our babies deserve parents who are whole. And if it is a blended family, our parents deserve to be at their best. Are required, they have a responsibility to be at their best. So in essence, what I'm trying to get across here is that I'm tired of seeing the frequency at which Black men are harming our women and children because they are not whole and that they were invited in by women. We've got a lot to deal with. We've got a lot to confront. We have a responsibility to do it. And I'm going to close on this note. We need to stop pretending that everything is okay. It's okay to tell the right person, I'm not feeling well, I'm not up for it, or to sit up and say, I need help, I'm hurting. It's okay to sit up and talk about what you've been through so that you can get where you're going. Now, I'm not saying you camp out in it. I'm not saying that you live in it. I'm not saying that you identify with it, but you got to confront it. You got to heal from it. You can't sit up and cover up a bullet wound with a Band-Aid and think that's the end of the story. There's a good chance there's internal bleeding that you're not seeing, and the Band-Aid can't fix that. These babies deserve a chance, but they need parents that are capable and willing to put them first and to be coverings. And at the top of the list of covering and protecting has to be a man that's willing to put his life on the line to protect his house. There are no perfect men. I'm a long way from being perfect, but there are some things that I had to be willing to do before I could be a good husband. And one was to make sure nothing came to my family without first having to go through me. It's not a fun place to be. Not all the time. You know, it's great when you're being loved on. It's great when you're being celebrated. But sometimes you don't even share with your wife and children some of the sacrifices you make so they don't have to worry about it. Sometimes you're going to go unnoticed because they don't know. But that's the responsibility that has to come that has to be executed by Black men. You get your fulfillment by fulfilling your responsibilities. our egos are so fragile these days that if we don't get told at least 3 times a day how awesome we are, we feel diminished. We feel less than. We become frustrated. Know who you are. Know who you are to the point that you don't need anyone else to tell you, no one else to co-sign you, no one else to back you up, nobody to tell you. You just know. And then you will never be in a position where you harm those you say you care about and love. Because at the height of your identity is that of a protector. That's it. Look, there's work to be done. We've got to do a better job. We've got to do a better job of properly socializing our young men, properly healing our kids who are now adults, and properly protecting and insulating the children who are now children. It's so immensely important that we get this. There's work to be done. We're going to be doing it on our end through the Black Man Lead Rite of Passage program, through the Restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters program. We're going to be doing this consistently. And we are challenging everybody to be a part of something that brings healing. You don't have to support us. You know, we would love it if you do, but you've got to be involved. We can't keep sitting around posting wows and oh my gods and shaking my head and not being actively involved in the solution. That time is out. We've got to be actively involved. There's no sitting in a place in a seat of neutrality and accomplishing anything. If you're neutral, you're a part of the problem. There has to be a yearning inside of the Black man that wants to protect, that needs to protect, that yearns to protect. And it's up to us to plant that seed at an early age. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.